interview girls and take them as sort of experts on their own experience, we were really careful with the word girl. It was a term that implied subordination. No matter what age, it suggested a kind of dependence, immaturity, and a lack of autonomy. So in our research, we were really clear that even with young women, with girls who were in high school, that we referred to them as young women because that was our way of signifying that we really heard them, that they were visible, that they had power, at least in the interviews, if not in the culture. So in the 80s and 90s, girl was, when I talk with my students at Colby, this is history to them because, they don't experience themselves as young women, but refer to themselves as girl. So this idea that girl and woman, is, again, is sort of terms that are changing over time. Girl has gone through at least 2 transitions since then, and probably others. And certainly it's defined, culturally in different ways. But in the early 90s, the Riot Grrrl movement really talked about girl as a growl, and it's a movement that really arose out of the kind of punk and indie music scenes to talk about girls as really standing with each other and anger as a source of power. So these young women were really sort of working together, sort of making music together, and also sort of spreading a kind of sort of girl power through underground fanzines like Girl Germs and Bikini Kill and Sister Nobody. In these kind of Xerox pages they delivered by hand or through the mail, they were creating space to rant and rave and rage about personal and societal abuses. It was a fierce naming of all things girl, and a push for what they called girl love, unpolluted by competition and male domination, and an insistence on being heard. That is, they were refusing to become commercialized or commodified, and in fact, they refused to talk to the press about their movement. So this was, a time, again, what I mourn is that young women are not educated about their own history of activism. So I'm always trying to talk with them about, different moments that emerged and the ways in which activism, and particularly girls' activism, can get co-opted. When the Riot Grrrls refused to talk to media for very good reason, what happened is marketers and media filled that void. And so by filling the vacuum with, by picking up sort of, all forms of girl power. If those of you who sort of grew up at this time know that everything was called girl power. It still is in a way. And who was the sort of first group that jumped out as girl power? It was the sort of Spice Girls, right? So you could be, 5 types of girls, and if you were a girl of color, you were Scary Spice, right? So it was this incredible, crazy moment where, this is how girl power was starting to be defined, and certainly defined as a commodification through a kind of image of empowerment and identity transformation through consumption. And so we have a really different moment, that emerges out of that kind of radical moment of Riot Grrrls. Sort of, again, the image of a girl empowered that then gets connected to empowerment as a very individualized kind of power, so that, having an impact meant having an impact on yourself, making yourself fit, making yourself be in what Anita Harris calls the can-do girl, the girl who can be beautiful and strong and powerful in very individualized ways. And so that's the kind of girl that I want to talk about, the girly girl. And girly, of course, is a term that comes out of porn culture. But this notion of a kind of girly is where we really are very much right now. So we can sort of also think about how girl maps onto our understanding of fighting, right? So another contested term, girls fighting and girls anger. So a struggle to sort of claim ourselves as, sort of girls and young women. When I started doing this work, anger was very much an unfeminine emotion. If you expressed anger, you pretty much better do it underground, or you may do it in relational ways and indirectly, because to do it otherwise is to, you know, be called a bitch, and you still inherit a lot of this stuff. But certainly at that time, you know, the sort of indication that women who are angry were irrational and kind of crazy and hormone-driven and not worthy of attention. And so, you know, part of the struggle to claim, you know, the sort of serious nature of being a young woman was to be able to, and Jean was really talking about this, claim oneself's anger and strong feelings as a real part of ourselves and connect it to sort of action. But certainly at that time, you know, that was a, you know, anger was a real unfeminine kind of thing to express. You know, as we move into the sort of, you know, riot girl sort of moment, it's a moment of real outward expression of anger and resistance. And so resistance and rebellion was sort of vocal. There was a real brave kind of vocal aspect of it, invisible. Even though the zines were underground, they were making music, they were really talking, they were out there. The Ed.D. Reader in 1994 proclaimed riot girls as dissed, miffed, and totally pissed. You know, it was an anger in the service of social and political change. But, you know, what happens when, you know, girls and women rise up, of course, is that it has to be contained, right? Because fighting in, you know, the cultural response to that kind of expression of anger, because it's going to imply that the status quo is questioned and it's going to change, we shouldn't be surprised was to sort of, you know, suggest that this was a problem with girls. And that, you know, the questions that were arising in media, as I was sort of tracing it at the time, was not, you know, do girls have something to be angry about and why are they angry, but are girls turning meaner and why are they getting mean? You know, at the time, of course, Mean Girls and the movie and all this kind of stuff, and also RA, relational aggression, we even have a short term for it, you know, is a way, I think, we have really sort of culturally tamed and contained girls' anger, at least as political resistance. And so, you know, this shift into girly is very much, and the notion of girl power is very much connected to ways that we contain girls. And one of the ways we contain girls, and I'll be talking about, is to talk about their anger as erotic and something visible and something to be watched and something to be surveilled. So, you know, I just, you know, by beginning this way, I wanted to sort of give you a framework for sort of the work I'm going to talk about now, which is really to look at this girly culture and how it's sort of moving to become such a sort of not only pervasive, but moving younger and younger. It's a concern sort of many of us have about girl culture right now. And particularly, you know, as Anita Harris sort of notes, that that girls are sort of not sort of so much moving to become sort of political citizens or citizens of a democracy, but have been really encouraged to become consumer citizens. And we still live in a culture in which most of the media is produced by men, and most of it is consumed by women. Not only media, but products. And particularly younger and younger girls are sold on the notion of power and choice. And they, in fact, in this culture, are the least likely to have power and choice. But they're sold through marketing an image of what it means to be a girl and what it means to be an empowered girl. This is work that I did with Sharon Lamb, who's now here at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. At the time, she was at St. Michael's College in Vermont. And one of the things that we did was really look at girl culture and kind of, you know, try to sort of understand how it is that marketers and media so effectively target girls and what themes arise. And I just want to talk about a few of these. And again, what I want to do is talk about how much this culture and how is sort of with us and how pervasive, but I'm going to also talk about how girls are responding to it. And so the fighting like a girl is really about the activist response to this moment. I think we're in an actually historical moment. It's going to be another one of those riot girl resistance movements. And I'm really encouraged by it, so I want to sort of share some of this with you. So the themes that Sharon and I saw when we looked at media, you know, culture targeting girls, was the ways in which